Be thou my vision. Come on, Hannah, sing it with me.
Okay, look, y'all. I couldn't be more sick about what's happened. So we had Hannah Smith come on and join us for 3 episodes on the podcast. And all 3 are fantastic. Hannah is a great guest. She's a great interview, and she has a great perspective about theological concepts. But in the midst of a lot of new things and a big day, we lost most of her video footage. So we have all of her audio, and I really hate this so much. But I'm going to put a picture of Hannah down in the corner, and then on the last episode that we filmed with her, so we did 3 episodes with her, on the last one, the second half will have her video. I could not be more sick about this. Hannah, I'm so sorry. Listeners, I'm so sorry. I hate it, but this is the best I can do now. We will be better.
Oh, Lord of my... What is it? Oh, Lord of my heart, but all else be not to me, save as thou art.
You got it. You got it. Take it away.
Thou my best thought, by day or by night, waking or sleeping. Something about presence, delight, something like that. Welcome to Pints Perspectives, where we love to sing hymns because Cullen hates it.
One of these days, I'm just begging for one of these videos, and just the comments are just littered with people dragging Adam's ass for his terrible hymn choices.
Hey, terrible hymn choices. Be Thou My Vision is like the hymn.
It's not the doxology. What are you talking about?
This is what I was about to say. It's
pretty
like
close.
It's like doxology. What's the one written by the slave trader? Amazing Grace. Amazing Grace.
Oh, that's not the one I was thinking. Okay.
And then Be Thou My Vision. These are these are the songs.
Nah, dude. Are you
Name a more popular hymn.
I'll Fly Away.
That's not
not a hymn.
That is absolutely a hymn. The original version of the song was written in like 1883 or something.
Okay. Agree to disagree.
That's some real like Billy Graham hymn stuff, man. That's some like Baptist hymn stuff.
Well, you were the one that's like, I got Baptist hymnals from the 1800s.
To be fair, it's the spiritual. So
let's
not knock it. Like let's listen to it in context of liberation theology. Okay.
All right, and welcome Hannah Smith to the podcast, everyone.
I'm just saying. It's quite Gnostic in its theological thought process.
Be Thou My Vision?
No.
I'll
I'll Fly Away.
Oh yeah, right. Oh, it's escapism. It's theological escapism.
Well, you know, from these prison bars, I'll fly away. So
Yeah, that's because it's a spiritual. All right, hey, welcome to Pints and Perspectives. We're gonna drink beer now, and so let's go one by one, starting with Cullen. What is this? What are you drinking?
The Jabberwocky.
Yes, it is.
The Imperial India Pale Ale. So, do you know why they call it Imperial when it's a double IPA?
It's the same thing.
No, I know, but do you know why?
I just thought it was interchangeable names. Because it's 2 I's? Imperial IPA?
If you know, in the comments, let us know.
I just thought they were interchangeable.
I have no idea. I just always know that a double IPA is an Imperial IPA.
Yeah.
This from Lone Pint Brewing, Magnolia, Texas.
What else? What?
Magnolia.
Magnolia. Does that make you feel some kind of way,
Yeah.
Hannah?
No, it's very local.
Okay.
Yeah. we try to support local around here.
Tell them more.
8.5 ABV.
Damn.
114 IBUs.
I bought it for Cullen specifically. I was at the store. I think they only release it ever so often. I don't think it's annual. I've had it many times. It is an IPA of IPAs. And so I was like, man, I bet Cullen hasn't had this.
I have not, and I'm just saying, 114 on the IBU scale. IBU stands for International Bitterness Units. If you didn't know, it is literally a scale made up for beer to measure the hops, the bitterness of them. 114 is lit.
Litty, 250.
Yeah, no joke. That is like off the charts.
Would you describe it? Yes, that's correct. Would you describe it as a monster of a beer?
I haven't tasted it yet, but I would imagine it is a monstrosity.
Well, you should, because a Jabberwocky is a reference to a 1970s monster flick. That's why they named it that. So,
Well, I'm trying to find it, and it's not in the limited releases.
maybe it's not a limited release. I don't know. I've had it on tap. I don't think
It's a
I've
core brew.
It's a what?
It's a core brew.
Okay, core
They
brew.
keep it around.
Okay, tell us more.
It says, akin to the Jub bird and Bandersnatch, the Jabberwocky is strong, intimidating, and to be feared. However, once slain with a Vorpal sword, that is true.
It's
There
a
is a hop dragon thing.
It's a movie.
with
It's-
a sword through it.
This is a play on a 1970s
you know,
movie.
Sword of the Prince. What's that Disney
What?
movie?
What?
The one about the sword. The
King
little
Arthur's
boy?
Court, bro?
No, never mind.
Star Wars?
No. However, once slain with a
Sounds like
Vorpal
King
sword,
Arthur.
it becomes an enticing, well-balanced Imperial IPA. I don't know how that's possible with 114 IBUs.
It is not well balanced. I'm going to tell you that right now.
Hast thou slain the Jabberwock?
Yeah, there you go. 8.5.
Columbus and Citra hops, house yeast. That's just going to be a normal American ale yeast.
Yep.
Golden Promise and Pilsner malt.
Malts.
This is not going to be balanced.
It's not going to be balanced. The
This
fact
is
that
about to knock. I'm about to get punched in the face with hop gloves.
you know what? Okay, so I say that the best IPA in Texas is Yellow Rose Lone Pint Smash IPA. So this is the Imperial IPA from the same brewer. I think you're going to like it very much.
No, I think it's one of the Imperial IPAs.
Do they
from
have
the same
multiple?
brewer.
I don't really drink a lot of real ale, even though we did it on the last episode. Hannah, what beer are you drinking?
This is also a real ale.
Oh, that's right. That's Magnolia. Anyways, yeah, real ale. Okay.
Cruiser all year beer.
Cruiser all year beer. Does it give you a style? Hannah is not our beer aficionado.
Alcohol.
No, it does.
It's a Kolsch.
Yeah, it's a Kolsch. It's that word
Oh.
under the title.
Yeah, Kolsch.
Yeah, it is 4.5% alcohol by volume with 18 IBUs, which means that it is very low on the bitterness scale.
See, they also have the double yellow rose.
Oh yes, I've had that. It's
And
incredible.
so that's 2 Imperials.
So crisp, delicate, and perfectly drinkable. The hybrid style
Like me.
of look.
Crisp and delicate.
Yeah, she just pours that beer right down the middle of that glass. Did y'all see that? Look at the head on that thing. My God. Out the can.
You've never watched an episode of our podcast, huh? You have no idea all the graphics and how much fun we have when people say beerhead.
Crisp, delicate, and perfectly drinkable. This hybrid style of beer walks the line between an ale and a lager. That is, yes. So fermentation at the lower temperature range for ale yeast creates a slightly dry, bright finish, void of the more fruity esters typically associated with ale yeast. Crack open and lean your head back and set the cruise control. I think that is a reference to drinking and driving, which we denounce.
Yeah, not about that here.
Okay, and then I'm drinking Karbach. So we've got 3 Texas beers, except for, I guess Karbach is no longer technically a Texas beer because they sold out like a bunch of punks, which everyone makes note of all the time. But this is their Rodeo Clown varietal, but tropical version. So the Rodeo Clown for Karbach is a staple. And it is their like double IPA. It's their Imperial IPA, I should say. Well, no, because Rodeo Clown is the double.
Rodeo Clown
This
is
the
the double.
Imperial.
And well, no. Rodeo Clown. This is the tropical Imperial tropical. This is the Rodeo Clown with some tropical fruit adjuncts.
Yeah, great.
So
Excellent.
it's another
What?
run of the Rodeo Clown.
I like to use the word
Adjacent?
varietal. I like to use the word
Varietal?
varietal because that's what the wine people use. They use this term varietal, which
well,
I
we're
don't
not
know
in the
why.
wine world. We're in the beer world.
Hey, man, I'm trying to, elevate things a little bit, okay?
Well,
so,
the beer world's not quite as pretentious as the wine world, and I'd kind of like to
get
keep it that way.
out! Get out, white man drinking beer on a
Debatable.
podcast.
Are you kidding me? I grew up a cowboy drinking beer at 8 years old.
Not Imperial Tropical IPAs.
I am not uppity.
It wasn't craft beers. You were drinking friggin'
Keystone
Bud
Light.
Ice.
Keystone Light.
Okay. So this is a version of the Rodeo Clown, which is like a whole thing over at Carbach. It's a job, and a dangerous one at that. There's no question that a rodeo clown puts their life at stake every time they step onto the soft arena dirt. That's why even the clowns deserve a little time to kick their boots up and relax with the best Imperial Tropical IPA. They may not ride a bull, but they can catch this tropical IPA wave featuring aromas of mango, pineapple, and citrus with the dankness.
Dank. If you didn't know, that's a cannabis word.
That's a cannabis term. Two-row barley, Citra, Comet, Mosaic, and Galaxy.
Ooh. Do you know much about Galaxy hops?
No.
I'll be interested to know what you think.
40 IBUs, 9% alcohol by volume. Cheers, friends.
Cheers.
All right, give me some feedback. Hannah, what do you think about that beer?
It's aight. It's easy to drink.
She said it's aight.
I like the other one better.
Is it? Would you say
Great to know.
Would you say crushable?
Crushable. Definitely.
Crushable. Yes. So Kolsch, they're kind of like a Pilsner. They are very light. They're easy to drink. That's why I gave it to you, because it's also like kind of the other end of the spectrum from what you had last time. And so now it's like, okay, you like bold flavors. You want lots of things. You don't want to just like sip through something almost like just a little bit more than water.
Yeah.
Good to know. All right. Hannah's back, friends. My first time meeting her, actually, and she's dope. So we move along. What's your thoughts?
There is... So I just literally put my nose in it because it smells so good. I haven't actually tasted my beer yet, but there is this mango puree. What is the thing? Mangonada. Mangonada. This smells like a mangonada. And it's just full of fruit notes.
Yeah. Would you say that those fruit notes tend to be quite peachy, guava-like, and orange-like?
I think a guava is a fake fruit. It's
definitely not a fake
Agreed.
fruit. It's a very real fruit.
Debatable.
I mean, real in the sense that it exists, but not
that is the definition of real.
not in the sense that I want it in my fruit salad, though. You know what I'm saying? Like,
heard. Yeah.
Guava's not good.
Yeah.
I don't like guava at all whatsoever. Raw guava. I mean, I guess like imitation guava could be good or whatever. I don't know.
Whatever.
But honestly, the biggest note I get off of this, even while drinking, is mango. I just get mango nose. I get mango flavors on the palate. It says 40 IBUs, but I want to say that this is far more balanced. It is not very hop forward. It is, of course, it's an imperial, right? So we know these things. It's still sweet. The hops is kind of lost until the finish. It's got a great color. It's got a great head. I mean, it's an all around good beer. I mean, Rodeo Clown is one of my favorite beers on the planet. I don't think I would ever purchase this though. I don't really love all the fruits in the IPA kind of, unless you're talking about the that one from Back Pew,
Tanuki. Oh my God.
Which they just did a new, I talk about this beer a lot on this podcast, but they just did a new art release. The new can art, brand new can art for Tanuki. Just bought a 6-pack yesterday. Anyways,
really? What does it look like now?
it's a lot more.
Is it still the raccoon samurai guy?
It's definitely Raccoon Samurai, but the color scheme is a bit brighter rather than, I don't know. Anyways. Okay, what do you drink? Oh, you didn't give your beer a rating, Hannah. Rate your beer.
5.
Okay, right in the middle of the road. Nice. All right. Look, see, you're like an aficionado now. You're like, the other one was like 9.12. She's like 5. Man, it's aight.
It's aight.
I'm gonna give this a 6.5. Look,
I'm not sure where you're getting that mango flavor you keep talking about.
I mean, it says it on the website, but I don't know.
Yeah, but I don't know where they're getting it, because did they mention that it was an adjunct? Because it's not coming from any of the hops.
It says IPA wave featuring aromas of mango, pineapple, and citrus, and with the dankness.
I love guava. I mean, I love Galaxy hops because I really love like stone fruit IPAs. Like a peach IPA is one of my favorite things. And so Galaxy produces that peachy guava kind of flavor.
Okay.
That's why I was wondering if you were... Give them that.
Sure. I mean, I guess there's some peach notes there. I mean, it's all freaking citrus fruit.
There's a lot of peach notes
Whatever.
there. I've had that beer before. There's a lot of peach notes there.
I get my peaches from
Georgia.
Carbach. Okay, you gonna talk about your beer now? What are we doing?
Did you
here?
rate yours?
Oh, yeah, 6.5. 6.5. 6.5.
6.5. I'm actually going to disagree with Adam on this. It's more balanced than I expected it to be.
Oh, well, there you go.
For 114 IBUs, I would expect to be salivating with just like hop bitterness coating my mouth.
Yeah.
I'm not. It drinks like it's a 75 IBU beer.
Okay.
And I'm actually quite surprised they achieved that based on the malts that they use because they're lighter malt. You can see the
It's
color.
light malts. Yeah.
The love bar is not high on this beer.
Would you, I mean, but is it an Imperial IPA in your mind?
Oh, 1,000%.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
there's no question.
So it's got a lot of malt forwardness but
Well, it's got a lot. Yeah, it has a ton of hops. It does balance. That is the whole point of an Imperial. The reason people don't do it is because it makes it boozy. The more you boil it, the more wort you produce, the more sugar you have,
bad
the
and boozy.
fermentation you get, the more big bad boozy you get.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I think it's overall good. I think
This is great
yeah,
radio.
7.6. It's just a
7.6.
It's just a good double.
I'm a big fan of anything they release from Lone Pint. So
I think you were the first one to give me a smash IPA.
yeah.
It is your I can almost bet every time I go to Adam's house and go to the beer fridge, there's going to be a smash in there.
It'll be Yellow Rose. It'll be Yellow Rose. Yeah, because I love it so much. I also love the can art going on with the Jabberwocky.
Yeah, so the
Purple and green. That's my vibe.
The slaying of the hop dragon is dope.
114 IBUs.
It is a hop dragon.
Okay, so did you rate it? All right, cheers, friends. You
Yeah,
did. Yeah,
7.6.
so
I
okay,
did.
moving on here. We're on episode 2. A lot of beer.
We're here to talk to Hannah.
Hannah Smith.
Hannah drove over
Smith.
here so that we could talk to her.
Hannah, what are you, not to put all your business in the streets, but what's the next move for you career-wise right now?
Yeah, so I am.
Considering?
No, I'm going.
All right.
I leave in like a month. So I'm moving to Austin.
Oh.
I know. Yeah. I am doing a seminary redo.
Redo. What an interesting way.
I did that.
Yeah, I mean, he did it too. But go ahead. Just keep going.
So I am pursuing holy orders in the Episcopal Church. So 3 years from now, I will be priest in the Episcopal Church.
You wouldn't be considered a priestess?
I was fixing to ask that. Do you
You
make that
can call me
differentiation?
whatever you want. Yeah. So
Hey.
there's lots of women priests that go by Father.
Really?
Yes. It's
Tradition is wild.
but they do it like ironically, and I love it.
Okay.
But Mother Hannah, Father Hannah.
Oh, I'm totally calling
Whatever.
you Father Hannah. Get
Yeah.
out. You're going to be
Mhm.
Father Hannah forever.
Yeah.
Hannah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. If I have permission to do so.
Go for it.
Okay.
Is that common for female priests to be called mother?
What is common, I guess,
Yeah.
is the question, right?
Yeah. I guess that's true. Are female priests common?
In 2023, I feel like most people call their pastor or priest by their first name.
Yeah.
Good
Giving
point.
someone a title, it's kind of fallen out of fashion.
That's
Yeah.
a great point.
But
You're going to be Hannah.
yeah, I'm gonna be Hannah.
You'll be Hannah. That's right.
But I will secretly love it when someone calls me Father Hannah.
Well, I know what I'm going to call you from now on. So Hannah and I, in case you didn't catch the last episode, Hannah and I went to seminary together at George W. Truett Theological Seminary at Baylor University.
Super long name.
And we were there. We overlapped the whole time. And so we're friends on Instagram
Mm-hmm.
for that same reason. And so let me read to you her bio on Instagram. It says Hannah. Well, her handle is Hannah. Oh yeah. A Gen Zer told me that handle is like not the appropriate way to refer to people's
Your at or your account.
your
name?
at or your account name. Apparently, handle has fallen out of vogue with the
I
children.
don't care. I will still always call it the handle.
This is what Hannah says. Disco hospital chaplain. And I will note the hyphen between Episco Disco. We're going to spend a moment on that for a second. What?
I love it.
I'm a funky Episcopalian.
Yes.
Because
I'm not your grandma's Episcopalian.
my grandmother was a racist Southern Baptist. Okay.
Well,
Okay. I get it. That's fun. Did you come up with that on your own? Did you? Are there other Episcopalians?
Colloquially, that's what we like to call ourselves.
Okay. So in the last episode, you referred to yourself as an Episcopalian who still likes to get down. Or no. You were like Kara's
Episcocostal.
Episcocostal.
Pisco disco similar.
Pisco disco. Okay. Okay.
Just with some more drugs.
Yeah,
More
nice.
drugs. 1970 in this bitch.
Crowd goes wild. Okay, Hannah should not move to Austin. Next to that opening line, there is an emoji of a dove, a peace sign, and a disco ball. That is the vibe. I love it. Okay, second line of the bio. You ready for this?
I'm ready. We follow each other. I know this.
Yeah. Well, I'm giving it to the people because it's brilliant. Folk spirituality, comma, death, comma, and incarceration.
Incarnation. That might be a spelling error.
That says incarceration. Someone put the dead emoji
That's
on every
hilarious.
face.
I'm so glad you pointed that out. I did not know that.
Dead. Oh.
I'm like, folk spirituality, death, and incarceration. These are the things I am against. I mean, she forgot the anti-folk spirituality, anti-death, anti-incarceration.
I have to change that before you go.
Oh!
I've been drinking too much.
I love it. Hannah, oh yeah, friends.
Well, I need like a napkin or something.
Okay. Okay. You go get it. Cullen's gonna go get a napkin, but we're gonna keep
That's
recording.
fine.
So help me understand folk spirituality, death, and incarnation.
Embodied faith, embodied practice, embodied spirituality. Yeah. So much of what I do as a chaplain.
When I hear folk spirituality, though, and maybe this is like my racism showing.
Oh, okay.
I get a negative connotation.
Interesting. Can you say more about that?
Yeah, I guess I'm reading it through the lens of like I was raised in folk religion, and what I mean by that is like evangelical Southern Baptist conservative, where folk meaning anti-intellectual and uneducated, and really just like a cultural contextual set. But maybe that's what you mean too. Yeah. Okay, say more.
I hear, like, to me, folk religion is the opposite of imperialistic orthodox systems that have been passed down that have like required that we believe a certain way in order to have any kind of justifiable relationship or experience of the divine.
Okay.
That's really problematic for me.
Wow.
Like I mean, I've said that again and again, but all theology is contextual, right?
It is.
And it has to be. And so if it's not folk, it's not, it's, what is that word where you're like,
elitist.
well, the word where you're, like, I've been drinking, where you're like, you take on someone else's cultural traditions.
Oh,
Appropriation.
Appropriation, right. So to me, anything that's not folk is just reappropriating a different kind of culture, right?
Yeah.
It's not authentic. That's not your context.
That's so interesting. That's a great point, because like I think one of the biggest critiques of Western evangelicalism is actually like anti-Semitic, because it's an appropriation of a Jewish religion and then like totally bastardized and colonized, right?
Yeah.
So death.
That's what I do. I mean, all day long.
Say
it's
more.
like,
Say more.
Yeah, I mean, so most of my job as a hospital chaplain is like being present for death, bearing witness to it, and helping people find peace in the process.
Yeah.
And I have come to a place in my life where I have wrestled with mortality, as we all are.
Yeah, sure.
Nobody ever, like, I think fully, completely is done wrestling with the concept of, or the reality of their eventual mortality. But there's something very sacred in that space of, like, being in that actual moment of death that I think tells us a lot about the divine and what God means to us and how we experience God. That is really nuts to think about, that, like, we know more about God in the hour of our death than we do in the life that we live. It's like God becomes the truth of who God is and how God and what God means to us becomes evident and, like, manifest at that very last moment. And I see, especially as someone who's, like, a millennial, who's young, who's, like, has a ton of theological education, we spend so much time doing mental gymnastics talking about who God is, and, like, and we have no idea what we're talking about, like, at all, because we're not actually faced with our mortality, right? Like, we are not, unless you are, like, actively wrestling with, like, your own extinction, like your annihilation as a human, as a person, as a being, as a consciousness, like, unless you're constantly wrestling with that, like, I don't think you can say anything substantial about who God is, what God's relationship is to us.
Girl, you're already leaning into the third line of your bio, and I'm gonna pivot away from that conversation, because
now tell us about incarceration.
F the police. Hold on. Let me go back to this death thing real quick.
Okay.
Before we move on.
We were talking about cops. It seems appropriate.
That's correct. Hands up. Don't shoot. We've had conversations about the concept of death, theological conversations about the concept of death. Would you, as a Pentecostal, and now as an Episcopalian who is trained in a Baptist seminary, I love it. What is death? Like, is death, commonly death is referred to as the enemy, or like the thing, the greatest manifestation of, like, the opposite of God's will, or like the brokenness of, like, God's created order, or, like, death is just, like, it's bad.
Yeah.
Is that how? But that's not how you feel, is it?
I don't know how else to explain to you my process of wrestling with that without being a little bit vulnerable.
Oh, sure. Cool.
So the reason why I became a chaplain is because my youngest brother died. Like, it was completely random. He was 21. Literally, just, like, we found him in bed. He'd been there for a while.
I'm so sorry.
And that was on top of I did student ministry for a while, and I was at this church where, like, in a span of a year, there was, like, so much death. Like, my students witnessed their parents into their life.
Wow.
I had students that their siblings passed away, and so I was just really, and then the culmination of that was my own brother dying.
Yeah.
So just really struggling with like, existentially, what does it mean to not exist anymore?
Yeah.
Like, how can you just be and then not? Like, I don't understand that. And really wondering, it felt oppressive, like, that to be left someone. Is that our time?
No, you're good.
No, that's prayer time. Noon.
To be the someone who's left over of someone else dying.
Yeah. Wow.
And so that was a big reason why I pursued chaplaincy, was I really wanted to continue wrestling with mortality and try to wrap my head around the purpose of death in our lives.
Okay, we had a technical difficulty just before that little weird interruption where
we hate it because Hannah was on a beautiful monologue that Adam ruined. So,
how did I ruin it?
Because your timer went off, and we couldn't figure out what it was.
See, this is an abusive work environment.
Neither one of us get paid. It's not work.
Okay, let's talk about incarnation. I think I get this one though.
Yeah.
Is that what
Say more.
It's your bio.
Yeah.
No, I mean, like, I would imagine as a hospital chaplain, with people on their deathbed, that is, so, okay, as a pastor,
Mm-hmm.
I have been in the hospital room
Mm-hmm.
where they like unplugged the
Mm-hmm.
thing. I have been in the room where like people have said their last goodbyes.
Mm-hmm.
I've been there, not as frequently as you have, or under the most, I would assume, crazy circumstances that you've seen this happen. But in those moments, I would agree with you. Those are the moments of incarnation
Mm-hmm.
where you can be, I've done it a lot actually, and especially when I lived outside of Waco, but like you can be present with individuals in their worst experience of their entire lifetime, perhaps. Hardest, saddest, I mean, all the emotions, anger, fear, everything, right? And you are like this one representative of, might I say, hope and peace. And that feels real Jesus-like, which I'm getting around to incarnation. Right?
Yeah.
Is that, I mean.
Yeah, there's something very embodied, I think.
Embodied, yeah.
Yeah, it's not just the presence of like the God person in the room, but there's quite literally like a spiritual transformation that's happening in the person dying, right? It's like from one side of eternity to the other is happening in the moment.
Yeah.
And that's that process, that like spiritual transition that they're making is, it feels it's incarnational, right? There's like the divine is so potent in the room.
Any thoughts on folk spirituality, death, incarnation, and incarceration?
Well,
Incarceration.
I was getting a napkin for folk spirituality, so I missed that.
Keep going.
Death.
We've talked about it a lot.
I could talk a lot about death. We'll move along because there's something else I want to talk about.
Okay, third line and final line of the Instagram bio, and my favorite line. I don't know. I mean, Episco Disco was just like
that was that's money.
And you know, F the police. But third line says, apophatic as fuck.
PHUCK.
With a PH.
Yeah, PHUCK. As if that somehow changes.
Yeah, I gotta keep it a little, you know.
Yeah, PG?
A little PG, yeah. My
okay.
Instagram bio says people say I'm on my bullshit.
We do say that. Okay.
Spelled the right way.
I'm just setting expectations. Everybody knows what they're in for.
On my bullshit with a PH. Okay, Hannah. Like, I think all the words in your bio, I think the average person understands. But then you get to this third line and you say apophatic as PH fuck. I'm going to need for you to explain yourself, ma'am.
I feel like it's a good culmination of all the other words that I use to describe myself.
Okay.
I mean, okay, first of all, you said you wanted to describe the differences between apophatic and cataphatic. Why don't you start there?
Yeah. So like, if I'm remembering my theological training well, like apophatic is, apophatic and cataphatic theology are two different ways they're
methodologies.
They're methodologies of theology to talk about, describe, understand, define God. And apophatic the prefix is a, so it's like the negation. Let me say what God is not.
Yes,
is the only way to talk about God. But then
apophatic is form.
There you go.
So it's like a negative form.
Negative
form
or
denial of form.
Denial.
Yeah.
What it is not, or what God is not. And then cataphatic would be the opposite. It is a theological method of talking about what God, or who God, or how God is,
or if God.
Or if God, yeah, right. So, but you are emphatic about the apophatic. You see what I did there? Because you put the PH fuck on it.
Yeah.
So yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
You wanted to say that?
Go for
I'm
it.
laughing. You can't hear the. If you watched one episode that came out, I shit on Adam as a producer for just random button pushes and all kinds of shit. He just tried to push some buttons, and it was a good combination he was going for. but he started with the womp womp. And it was not intentional. And I see, this is why we're best friends. I can't help but bust his balls.
Yeah,
when he does something, I just have to.
I got it
so
right.
that's how I was laughing. He said,
I got there.
Oh, womp womp.
I got there eventually. Okay, that's
what she said.
Okay, you're emphatic about apophatic. Okay, go.
Yeah, so I think so much of it is rooted in my kind of journey from Pentecostalism into a more high church tradition, which is the Episcopal Church. And it's also rooted in like my shit ton of degrees, right? Like I've studied a lot about what God is, and I'm just frankly not interested in any of those conversations anymore.
Nice.
Also, like being with people, again, this goes back to my work as a chaplain, on their deathbed, like all of the conversations we have in seminary or elsewhere about theology are like not relevant to life at all. Like, how is this applicable?
That's a great plug for seminary. Those of you that are considering going to seminary,
if you want to study things that like have no relevance or like any real life application, go to seminary.
They're like, why are we listening to this podcast?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, go ahead.
So my, I guess, like journey to a more like apophatic spirituality has just been one of being really fed up with lots of things said about God or attributed to God. Language is really loaded. It comes with a lot of baggage 100%. And it's inherently wrong. Right? So much of learning theory and like developmental psychology teaches us to learn anything. You have to learn it wrong first. And it's just about like asking the right questions. You can't know the right questions to ask or even the next question to ask until you learn the first principle incorrectly. Right. And it's
so good.
It's like spiral learning. Right. And that's similar how we understand God is God too. So my faith these days just looks a lot more apophatic rather than being cataphatic, which is like creeds and saying what God is.
So would you, on those lines, would you say that there's like 0% of you that's cataphatic? So like to the point that you wouldn't even say like God is love.
No.
Ooh,
So the relationship between like being apophatic and cataphatic is they necessitate each other. That you have to have.
They interpenetrate one another.
Absolutely. So like you cannot, again, this goes back to the concept of learning theory. Like to say anything about God, you first have to say it incorrectly. It's the only way we know. Like, this is why I have a lot of grace for like Theo bros on the internet. That like want to talk about like like who
us?
Yeah, I was like, are you talking about us?
Me?
These white dudes
who
that have some
talk
degrees?
About specifically like who was right about the Eucharist, Calvin or Luther? I'm like, it's so cringy, right? But like at the same time, you have to start there to like be able to say anything true about God, to say anything not just like applicable, but genuine about God. You have to start at a place that is oversimplistic, right?
Oh yeah.
And so to have a cataphatic faith, I think a really great example of this would be like a statement that is cataphatic would be like saying God is one, which we hear in like so many different faith traditions around the world. An apophatic blend onto that truth would be like God is one in three, or to have like a Trinitarian perspective, which is saying something about God.
Okay.
But it's also saying what God isn't.
One.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. And so we literally cannot have, if we were to be completely apophatic, language wouldn't exist. We would not have language. There would be no spoken word, right? Which is so much of like the divide between like Western and Eastern Christianity. It's not a coincidence that it happened around the time of the printing press.
Absolutely.
Right? Like specifically like when written word was becoming popular and when people could like have semantic arguments
well,
for the first time.
The entire great schism of the split is based off one fucking word.
All about
You're
terms.
so right. One word.
1051.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so, you have to have both. And it's you can't say anything about God without talking about God incorrectly.
Can you formulate for us a purely apophatic claim, phrase, sentence?
so a lot of people would say like the omnis inherently are like to say, you know, so much of, okay, so for example, you would say like omnipresence, which is God. Traditionally, how we've interpreted that is God is everywhere. So a more apophatic way of interpreting that would be there is nowhere where God isn't.
The negation.
The negation, right? So it goes back to that negative theology. I think that's fine. To me, the irony there is that, like, if we're really going to talk about a denial of forms, that's still using a form, right? So much apophatic theology is not actually a denial of forms. It's really just systematic theology repackaged.
Yes.
Oh, that's true. Because I guess you could create a package of what God is by saying what God is not.
Of course.
Exactly.
Of course.
So something I was actually thinking about this on our drive today is like, it's so interesting how men and women have done like historically apophatic theology. So many men throughout history have interpreted, it's almost very Gnostic. It's like my body, you know, you hear a lot of like contemplative prayer and centering prayer and all these things like divination, but it's almost like my body gets in the way of the experience of God. And for women, it's almost like an addition of the body. It's very embodied. And I think it's really important to note that like both of those experiences are, they're forms.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But I think like from the man's perspective, like adding a body is a form that they're not always aware that like they are also using their own form, but from like a very masculine, like patriarchal perspective, just because it's less material doesn't mean it's not a form. So
when you say form, are you using that in a like abstract construct way, or are you using that in a way of like rhetoric, like the true the rhetoric meaning of the word form,
like an Aristotelian form?
No, like in true like rhetoric, the way we form sentences, words, and construct language.
Yeah, I think in a more constructive way. I'm thinking like how many times, I'm sure you guys have been a part of like how many like centering prayer things you've been to. They're all exactly
we went to
Truett.
We all went through
it's all the same.
Like
formation group or whatever.
There's a method of how you pray. There's a method of how you are doing any kind of contemplation.
Well, you come from a Wesleyan tradition. There's literally method.
Method is, But like the approach of centering prayer is like that you would not use outside images or thoughts or like anything concrete to distract you from God revealing God's self to you in those moments.
Right.
And yet like that's exactly what ends up happening because we can't know anything outside of the vacuums that we live in, you know?
So good. I just want to read a quick definition off the internet. Apophatic theology employs the idea of a qualitative difference, a difference in kind, maybe we're using the word form here, between the human being and the divine. Whereas Cataphatic theology or positive theology claims a similarity between the human being and the divine, which makes it possible to achieve knowledge of the divine.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but Aquinas was the first one to really like put this in words, right?
Oh, I don't know.
Dionysius was like really the father of negative theology.
So much older.
Patristic.
Yeah.
Patristic. Dionysius, like 400, right?
Yeah. I think it might be earlier than that, but yeah.
Because this is so where I got introduced to I think where I got introduced to apophatic and cataphatic theology is because of our studies with Blackwell in patristic theology. Because I think, isn't Eastern Orthodoxy more apophatic, right?
Much more apophatic.
Like that's a kind of, can you?
Late 5th, early 6th, so 400.
Okay. So like, and I think you started with this, like the difference between the Eastern and the Western kind of theological approach. Can you say more about that? What is it about? And sorry, so multi-part question here. Can you say more about that East and West division on the cataphatic, or the apophatic being more emphasized in the East, and then like how that fits into your Episcopalian kind of theological system now?
Sure. Yeah, so I'm not Orthodox, and so I'm hesitant to even like talk like I know.
We're all heretics.
Orthodoxy.
That's
no,
been
confirmed. But like,
yeah.
But like the Orthodox Church, like they hold positions on things that I cannot quite wrap my head around, just because I'm in a very different context.
Sure.
But from what I understand is it's a very Western concept to talk about knowing God's essence. And in the Orthodox Church, and specifically more like apophatic circles, essence is not something that can be known. Like God is unknowable to the extent that like we cannot know God's essence. We can know the unmade, I forget the term they use. It's like unmade energy.
Okay.
So like an example of that would be like justice.
Okay.
Or love. They're very abstract concepts that have no hard, like they're not made in the same way.
Yeah.
And so in the Orthodox tradition, love and justice are how we can get glimmers of God's essence.
Yeah.
I think that one of the major differences between like Catholicism and the Orthodox Church is that Catholics would say that like I can know love and justice, and therefore that's how I know God. But the Orthodox would even take it further and say like actually you can't even really know love or know justice because those are attributes of God. You're experiencing them, but you can't know them in their fullness, and therefore you can't know God's essence.
Yeah, interesting.
So it's more mystical than the Catholic tradition,
very mystical,
for sure.
You see what's happening? Her apophatic position is holding very, very strongly and closely aligned to her transcendent position about God. God is other than us.
Right.
If you want to describe Hannah, Hannah Smith, it is God is other than you. And you really struggle to comprehend what God is because God is other than.
Yeah.
I think that's the most authentic theological position.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that's okay. Hold on. So relate that to your Episcopalian journey.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, I always say the Episcopal Church found me. It was not on purpose. I wasn't looking for it. My church was Methodist and we became Episcopal.
Yeah,
so that's a whole other
evolved.
thing.
Yeah.
But also like part of my ending up at this kind of church anyways, that was even like Anglican curious, is because of my my relationship with
Is that what all Episcopalians? Is that what all Episcopalians are? It's just Anglican curious?
I mean, we are Anglican.
I know.
So the Episcopal Church is Anglican, but like a lot of Methodists are Anglican curious.
Okay.
And yeah, so for me, it was a lot of praying through the Book of Common Prayer that really like just caused me to experience God very differently.
Thanks for listening to the Pints Perspectives Podcast hosted by WellHouse Church. Be sure to give us a rating and a review if you enjoyed the episode. It's free and it helps us immensely. Also, feel free to check out our other podcasts.